Good morning. This is a player recap and reflections on last night's Blackfish Bay, Chronicles of Joth, Blackfish Bay, session 49. This goes back to sessions that were in Joth and around Joth, and then we've been in Blackfish Bay for the last couple of years. Session 49, which means next week it's a milestone, session 50, or in 2 weeks, session 50. So it's gonna be amazing. This was so much fun last night. So we had almost a full house. We had seven commit early in the day, seven players, including our GM, excuse me, not including the GM, which would make eight in Discord and Roll20. One of our players, Dell, was unfortunately unable to attend, lots on his plate. So we had six players and our GM. So we had Discord full, worked beautifully, and we had Roll20 full, and it worked beautifully. Now, we weren't using video or sound in Roll20. I'm not certain how well that would have gone if we had been trying to use video and sound. We never use video and sound in Roll20. Discord's where we do our communicating, etc. But I was thrilled to see it was beautiful. I didn't have any problems at all, and I don't believe anyone else did either, as far as both of those platforms handling seven people. And four of us, I think, had video going. Normally in Joth, we don't use video because we're in Roll20, and but some of us leave it up, and I try to record a little of both on and off. If we're in Roll20, looking at maps, rolling dice, I try to stay there. If we're if we're doing more around town role play or whatever, I try to pull up our faces in case we have people that are there. So this was brilliant. And again, I've missed two sessions, 47 and 48. I found out last night that Eloy had recapped those, which is sweet. I'm going to catch up on those today. So I had no idea that they had recorded those or put up recaps for those. So believe it or not, I'm not subscribed to Dell's channel. So it's going to be a kind of a rude awakening for Dell. I'm not subscribed to our own channel because I know what we're putting. I generally know what we're putting up there. So I have to, like, I'll notice Dell's videos go up as they come up in my algorithm, right? Which is kind of funny. Or when I go on to upload these videos, I'll see, oh, Dell's put up a video. I better watch that. So yeah, I should just sub up so I know what's going on. But anyway, that is so cool. So I found out last night Eloy had done recaps, which is cool. He could have done this one. That would have been cool. I'll recap Barrel Mix. You can recap these. I don't care. But holy cow, was this great fun. We had Justin returning after a hiatus, and this happens with all of us. Sometimes our lives get busy and we leave for a little while, and schedules at work change, or schedules in our life, our family, career, health, whatever. And so some of us have left for a period and come back, and etc. And that's part of a long-standing group of friends. People come and go, and that's great. So it was wonderful to have Justin back after a bit of a break. Um, and First time I had a chance to play with Eric, so that was great. Eric's fantastic. John, of course, returning. David, myself, and who am I forgetting? David, myself, John. Oh gosh, have I got everybody? I'm forgetting somebody. No, maybe not. Okay, I think I got everyone. What the heck? Myself, John, Eric, David. Um, er- um, oh my God, Justin. I'm forgetting someone. Jiminy Christmas, forgive me. That's what happens when you do these recaps and you're tired. I don't know how I'm gonna remember the session. I can't remember who played. And oh, Eloy, Jiminy Christmas. I'm sorry. So three fighters and two clerics, two priests, one of Huldra, who is the goddess, kind of ushers the dead into the afterlife. I think it's Huldra. And then, of course, the one priest of Thraxus. Thraxus is the main god, is the dragon god that dominates this campaign world. And then we have, of course, David, myself, and Eloy are all fighters. And then we have George, the liar, who is a bard of sorts. He uses magic, and I believe he's a bard. I have yet to see. Um, I know he uses magic, and I know he carries a lyre, but I had no idea whether that's in the advanced book or not. I think it is. So, but either way, you could be a magic user I mean, this is the thing. You didn't need to have a bard class because how you describe your magic user using music to cast your spells is legit, you know. If I had a magic user with a, high charisma, I would probably say this guy is a bard, right? So, but again, having the class is nice, right? Having something defined that has special abilities is fine. But my point is he could be a magic user that just carries around a lyre. I don't know. Um, However, I think he's used some things that I wasn't, that the magic user doesn't have. So anyway, long story short, I believe he is a legit minstrel, bard, something. Okay. Um, so again, 47, 48, I missed. Todd, if you watch the AP, recaps 48 well, so you can kind of catch up there. They were wrapping up a bandit, trying to clean up the bandits to free Hilda. They made a deal with the Justicar that if they bring back all the bandits, and in exchange for the leader of the bandits who's already in captivity, that he would release Hilda. And George, of course, is in love with Hilda, so he wants Hilda. But also, this quest started many, many sessions ago, back in Bitter Moon, like the 20th of Bitter Moon. Jacotus gave Theana, Martin, and George this quest: go free Hilda. And Martin is still alive, but he's out there wandering the wilderness. As we had a session that intersected, in which I introduced a character who's now dead, or not introduced. I brought back a dwarven character that is now dead. He died in session 46, I think. And so I took over Lars, a Longfang NPC, and made him a fighter. So I've been playing Lars. Martin is a third level thief, so at some point I'll get back to Martin. He's got a little more juice to his abilities. But either way, so Theana was back with us in this group, and she had originally gone out with George and Martin to get Hilda. So he's back. She is back in the fray. This is Justin's cleric. And then, of course, Lauren, this character survived a long time. He's seen a lot. And Lauren, David, fortunately, able to join us again on Wednesdays. And so he was back in the fray as that fighter. So, so we started the session off. They're all returning to Blackfish Bay with loot. They have seen the bandits, their end. They have collected their heads. They returned to the Longfangs to make the exchange, to find out that someone helped oh God, our villain with a tentacle. I can't remember his name now. Jimmy Christmas. I'm having one of those. I took an allergy pill yesterday for before bed, and these damn antihistamines jack the old brain box up. So I'm not as sharp as tack in the shed this morning, right? Anyway, he gets loose. So they decline the trade. Hey, great. I'm happy you killed all the bandits. You brought back evidence that you did it, but he's now free. He's now running loose. Sorry, no deal. And they demand that Hilda stay with them while they go to Blackfish Bay to talk directly to the Justicar. So we pick up in session 49 with them all returning to Blackfish Bay, loaded with treasure, as they were able to again, Osric, the giant Bane, was able to again intimidate with reaction checks and spook this giant. So twice now, Osric has stared down a giant and won in a contest of wills. And so they end up getting the bandits' loot from their cabin, and it was fantastic. So they come back loaded with loot, and now, because of the well, the portal in Brickett's Bottom is open. There's lots more going on, lots more people, the economy booming. And so Blackfish Bay has changed a lot. And because of the encroachment of the wax, the influx of authorities from Joth to enforce the will of Thraxis by paying the tithe to keep the wax back, they are now here. And so they've, in a way, they've turned a small little lakeside village into they've claimed it as a hard point. And so there's a main gate. You have to pay your tax to the dragon god to enter Blackfish Bay proper. Everybody who comes through the gate must pay a tithe of 10% of whatever they're carrying. So it's welcome. listen, the government is here now, right? You must pay Caesar his due. So as they approach, they've got to pay 10% of this loot. So it's a haul for the tithing that's paid. And so we get through the gate after after Damaris, our Eric's choleric, got a priest of Thraxus, negotiates with the appraiser. They have so many gems and jewelry they needed appraised, so they were hoping maybe that conversation would get the appraiser to bring it down. Well, Todd rolled 98% of its value, so they taxed them 98%. So again, we had fun at the beginning. You can't avoid death and taxes, especially in Joth. So it's very much mirrors the real world. We get in and we go straight to the Justicar, and George does all the talking. The Justicar happily accepts and says, "Yes, here's a writ for Hilda's release. Good job on bringing down those bandits." And then he offers up a couple of other solutions, which the Justicar takes in consideration. And then he dismisses us after we discuss the Longfangs, the incompetence, what we believe, what George hints that the leader of the Longfangs is incompetent and should be replaced. My character, a former Longfang, feels the same he was sent with this rabble and almost died. This is before he became my character. So of course, when I stepped into the shoes of Lars, he resents how he was sent with a rabble and now I really am tromping around with the same group of rabble. So it's a perfect circle. Anyway, so it's like that. And he also brings up evidence of these razor tooth ram type creatures or goat type creatures that are in the southern swamps, and that they might be perfect for the arena. And the arena, the proving grounds, is how the tithe is paid as well. So if adventurers can't bring back enough gold and loot to pay Thraxus, the tithing to Thraxus, then there must be prisoners and captures, etc., put into the arena, and that is a way of paying the tithing. If not, many people will just the wax will overtake. Thraxus won't fight back the wax for you. At least, this is the lore. Meanwhile, average Joes might get snatched up and thrown into the arena, right? It could get that dangerous. So he recommends that there's this group of swamp goats that would make great filler for the arena. So George is on top of it. He's ingratiating himself with the Justicar. He's offering up these really good ideas and solutions to aid with this. And so he expertly navigates that conversation. We get the release of Hilda. He asks us to take two prisoners back to the Longfangs when we go back there to get Hilda. And of course, not a problem. We do that. We then decide we need to spend some of this loot and improve. My character has only leather armor. I believe David's character only had chainmail. So we stop off at the blacksmith and we negotiate with him. We find out he only has 3 sets of plate. We get 2 of those sets of plate on the clerics. I accept chainmail off of one of our former, I mean, a hand-me-down set of chainmail, and we basically learned from him that he could make it, but he has no resources. And so I tell him, well, here's what we'll do. We're going to try to post notices all around the area, including, Burkett's Bottom, Blackfish Bay, Longfang Camp, to entice people to come to go to work for you in the mines. And so they can mine this iron, which he needs. He can't read or write. So I said, okay, fine, we'll write up the posters and we'll post them. And we stop off at the apothecaries, and we get some parchment, ink, and quills, and we head back to an inn to rest for the night. And my character stays up and drafts 10 posters that we're going to use to hang up. Meanwhile, after my character finishes it and bores my colleagues with my work on this great idea to help him get employees for the mine, uh, the uh, the priest of Thraxus says, "Well, let's hope they can read those posters." And of course, it's brilliant. I mean, I'm like, holy cow! I've done all this work. Why didn't you say this before I drew up these posters? So it's brilliant. But I immediately said, well, then we'll just hire a town crier, and we'll pay the town crier to cry every day, twice a day. That miners are needed to see Arn, right? So no sweat. We'll just hire town criers. And we can still post notices for those who might be able to read. Eloy offers up, Eloy, excuse me, Osric, Eloy's character says yes, and when we're in Brickett's Bottom, we can send back through the with the Well Witch a notice back to Joth to entice people who are looking for work to come through the portal to mine the mine. Okay, so we have a mine that's just it's collapsed and there's nobody working it. All right, so that this was fantastic, and our priest of Thraxus has his armor and tabard dyed to the color of the order, which I think is dark blue. So his armor and his tabard and things have been dyed to the to reflect his allegiance to the order of the Thraxus priesthood, which is very cool. We outfit it with a few other things. Everybody's armored up, and we're ready to the next morning to escort these prisoners back to Longfang camp. Along the way, we hear cries for help. As we turn the bend, we see two large lizard, 8, 9 foot large lizard creatures have a horse in tow, and a man trapped under that horse, alive, being drug away by these lizard creatures. Who a friend of his comes running to us to ask for help, and he calls them dragons. I have no idea what they are, but we engage. We try to fight these things off. My character is preoccupied with putting the horse out of his misery at first, so I'm trying to get its attention so Osric can free the man trapped under the horse. At the same time, I'm trying to kill the horse, put it out of its misery. We finally achieve a couple of those things. One of these creatures pulls the horse loose and is dragging the horse away while the other turns on us and fights with us, killing Osric fairly quickly. This thing has 3 attacks, 2 claws and a bite, and poor Osric succumbs with his brand new set of plate mail very quickly. We all had a laugh that obviously that plate mail did him no good. We fought mightily and we brought it down with the help of everybody. Theana held down the prisoner so they couldn't escape while we were fighting this creature. The other one, of course, happy with its horse, drug it off. Fortunately, we didn't have to fight 2 of them. But we did finally, as this thing, beaten and battered with a failed morale check, tried to run away. We finished it off. So we rescued both this man with a broken leg. We also acquired Osric's body. And then we continued on to Longfang Camp, where we buried Osric and we said a piece over him. We retained his plate mail. I believe that went to David, if I remember right. And when we get to Longfang, no one's there. It's quiet. There's only a handful of guys banging around the camp. And so I approach, having been a former Longfang, talk to somebody I know. We find out that many of them are in the Longhouse, but many of them are out looking. There's been bad stuff. And we find out that Hilda had grievously wounded the leader of the Longfangs and escaped. So now Hilda's on the run, and they've sent out Longfangs all over looking for her. George, of course, is I'm sure horrified to hear this, and he storms. And I say, well, we need to turn and look for her. We need to find her before the Longfangs do. George disagrees and says, I want to speak to Borland. I want to go. So he's headed to the house. And my character, who doesn't want anything to do with Longfangs, I say, I'm going to stick outside here just by the door. I don't want to go in and see Borland in this state where he's dying. Meanwhile, as George is entering, my character, we all overhear the beta, the man who steps in temporarily to take over, giving some feeble speech about what they must do. And he also misrepresents how this all occurred, that we had brought these visitors here, and this is what happened. It's not true. They were prisoners. Hilda was their prisoner, and they allowed the other guy to escape as well. So I overhear this, and I can't help it. I pop my head in and I call him out as a weak beta, and I challenge him to control the Longfangs. And that's where the curtain closes. As George, you can imagine George is storming in to see all this and talk to him. And from the back, me yelling out, "You're a fool. I challenge you to leadership." And I'm sure George probably slows and rolls his eyes like, oh, I can just see it. Right. And that's where a curtain fades to black. This was a fantastic session, and they all are. I mean, who am I to say, right? I mean, I just love it. I love being with friends, and I love playing old school D20 games, fantasy D20 games. I can only imagine at some point we might try to wander into the D20 sci-fi genre of Stars Without Number or something might be kind of fun. I just love the D20. I love this style of gaming. I like what we're doing as far as game, having the ability to role play, and then we're having again two different, completely different kind of experiences. Uh, so it's just really fantastic to see both two games that are almost identical. These two D20 OSRs, Old School Essentials for Joth, and then of course Dragon Slayer and Barrel Maze are what we're doing on every as well once a week. And yes, we're doing Hex Crawl in that as well, and then we're doing Dungeon Crawl, and it is interesting to see two different groups and how they go about not only role play but how they go about organizing and how they go about it's fascinating to see just the personalities of different groups, different games. And so it's amazing because it shows you that out there's so many similarities between all tables, but there's also things that make every table's personality unique and different, whether it's the game itself or whether it's just the nature of how the GM conducts things or whether it's the nature of how players adhere to a certain atmosphere, right? It is amazing, and I I am lucky enough every week to get a little flavor of just how two fantasy D20 groups, all of us interchanging players too, right? There's many of us are playing both games, and that see the difference in the rule sets, the difference in it is just amazing, and you can see why I've always balked at the videos out there that tell you this is how it's done. This is how you should do it, and this is how it's done. Because if you've been at more than a handful of tables in your life, you know it's always slightly different at every table. This idea that there is some universal way that this is not only intended but experienced. And I think this has been true from 1974 when people all over the country got their hands on this little white box and they began to try to make sense of how to do this thing and they began to play. And then when they start to meet people and share stories and they start to move around neighborhoods and try different game tables, right? They begin to divide and they begin to set boundaries and they begin to define and they begin to categorize and they begin to and it's just the nature of people, right? I mean, no, the joke in Monty Python, right? The meaning of the life of Brian, right? The reminder that Christ, how many different followers of the followers of the sandal, the followers of, right? I mean, this is I mean, Christianity alone. Martin Luther hangs up the treaties on the door in 1500 of the Catholic Church, and Kawembo, we have 20,000 different Christian denominations. I mean, this is just the nature of man, nature of people. And so we align and we adhere, and some are formal and strict and dogmatic, and some of us aren't. And but you find those groups of people you can really enjoy and share this thing with, and it works. It just works. You just have to, you just have to look for it. You have to find it. And you know, I think there's plenty of representation on YouTube from the big channels that give advice on how to be better at this thing, or big channels that give advice on how to maximize your character in D&D 5th edition, little channels that just share recaps, developer channels, corporate channels like WotC's D&D channel, and there's something for everybody out there, and there's some way to get a clue as to how to do it, and what's expected of you, or and it's just amazing to me. I've been now able to for the last month and a half or so be in two games that you would argue, dude, why are you playing two? They're redundant. You're playing two D20 fantasy sessions. Well, because I want to, because there's nothing more than I enjoy than D20 fantasy. So if I could, I would play as many nights of the week as I could as my escape. And it's also a reminder to me that yeah, they're both D20 fantasy, but it's the they are different. And Last night we made a couple of jokes that in Dragon Slayer this, Dragon Slayer that, we were making jokes that plate mail armor, for instance, in Dragon Slayer is very expensive. In, of course, BX, well, of course, that is, that's this Old School Essentials is a remaster of BX, Basic Expert. Plate mail 60 gold, and in Dragon Slayer it's like 450 gold. It's an epic turning point for a fighter to be able to afford plate mail, right? And so it's very cool. So how do you handle that in, say, Old School Essentials when we box? So last night we teased that it's too cheap, but it's not too cheap. The GM can say it's not about price, it's about availability. So Todd does that. He limits so the amount of the price of it is fine. It's just not easy to find. And that's why Todd says, hey, I would love to, but I don't have the resources. So it's, instead of it being more expensive in gold, it's going to be more expensive in playtime. We are going to have to find or help them get the resources to make cheap plate mail. So again, you don't compare two games and say, why the hell is plate mail so cheap in this? And why is it so expensive in this? Because their intent is different. The intent in Old School Essentials is to say, but you don't, it's not Walmart. They're not mass manufactured. You don't get to waltz into any blacksmith and get plate mail. Yeah, it's relatively cheap, but it should be very, very, very scarce. That's the thing that the book doesn't necessarily say. Dragon Slayer says they're there and go about how you're going to get them, but it's also remarkably expensive. So, but there are other things, for instance, that aren't in Old School Essentials. There's no spell book, for instance. Spell book in most OSRs costs about 100, 125 gold. So, I mean, you can imagine if there were spell books in this, I would hope they're priced roughly the same as the plate mail, but for the magic user, right? Or maybe more, and the plate mail then should be more, right? As these are both important devices for different classes. Magic user has to have that spell book. The fighter wants that plate mail. Although it didn't help Osric at all last night, right? So anyway, this is my point about intent. I always talk about game design and game intent. The intention is not to make it difficult for the starting fighter to afford plate mail, right? When you roll up your one level character, 3-6 straight down, and you happen to roll 95 gold, you can get plate mail right out of the gate. That's the whole point. So you can start the game with your lowly one level fighter, and the one thing you have is plate mail. If you're willing to put a huge portion, which would be that 60 would be 2/3. If you nailed 180 gold and if you rolled 18 times 10 for your 180 gold to start as a fighter, 1/3 of all your money is going to go into that plate mill. Well, most of us are going to average 110 gold, which leaves us 40 gold left to outfit with armor and equipment. That's why it works, because this is about rolling up a starting character in basic. So Old School Essentials is about a beginning level character. The idea of adventuring, a whole different animal. But again, the intent of the game is exposed, right, is determined by the whole reason you're rolling them up. So here's your chance as a fighter. Ooh, you only rolled up 75 gold, dude. Well, either way, I'd get that plate mail, I'd get a shield, and that leaves you 5 for a sword, right? And there you go, or whatever. Right? You have to make a tough decision, or borrow money from somebody else in the party, or hope somebody else in the party brings enough rations and torches and things like that. So again, this is one of those advantages the magic user has, right? He doesn't have to spend a lot of money on equipment. So the magic user can be the guy who buys the rations for everybody, the rope, the torches, the flint and tinder, and carry his one spell. The fighter invests all of his money in weapon and armor. We're informed by the intent or the rules, and this is what. So we can argue anything. I can argue, oh, it's too cheap, but you're missing the intent of Old School, of BX and of Old School Essentials. It was not. It was intended for you to roll up a fighter and make a tough decision about buying plate mail, or could you afford plate mail. It wasn't about buying plate mail. Now, Dragon Slayer says this is expensive. You're not going to own this as a first level character, and you're going to want to adventure, get gold so you can make that achievement of purchasing plate mail. So the intent of Dragon Slayer is different. The effect of that is different. But I love that. Again, not every OSR is identical. And we talk all the time about their derivative, and they're all so closely related. But then there's subtle things like this that show up, things that we would have not talked about or even thought about until we're playing Dragon Slayer. We're going, oh, yeah, right. I don't know. Do I like that better? Do I like this better? It depends. It's different. But I'm enjoying all of this, right? It is. Yeah, I've said this before. It is. I am suffering an embarrassment of riches right now. I get to play my favorite type of game, my favorite genre, with two phenomenal groups of people. And I get to do this at minimum once a week. And so for me, it's an embarrassment of riches. It is, it's one of my favorite hobbies in all the world, and I get to do this weekly, and I get to do exactly what it is I enjoy. And so I'm lucky. A lot of people get to play every week, but it's not quite what they would want to do. But they'd rather play than not play. And there are plenty of people, I suppose, who are playing, twice a week, and they're getting to do exactly what they want, right? Um, the only thing I'm not doing is GMing, and that's okay, right? There are moments where I'm like, I'd like to GM a little bit, but I've been enjoying being a player, and I kind of like that, right? So fantastic. This has been a player recap and reflections of Session 49, Blackfish Bay, Chronicles of Joth, Old School Essentials, with a fantastic group of people. Thank you for watching. Everybody have a great weekend.